Hello, everyone. Welcome to one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting topic at Ignite this year, which is automations in agents. I'm going to be looking at how to build agents in Copilot Studio. My name is Fernandez. I'm a product manager in the Copilot Studio team, and I'm joined by my colleague, Orta-Olmo, who is also a product manager in the Copilot Studio team. The agenda today is very simple. We're going to start describing why we're so excited about automation and why makes it now the perfect time to build automation using Copilot Studio. We're going to then deep dive into computer use, which is the ability to give your agents a computer to automate tasks that need a keyboard and a mouse. And then we're going to deep dive into agent flows to show you how you can build predictable, reliable automations for your organizations. We're going to do a bunch of exciting live demos here to show you these capabilities. And the big takeaway I want you to take away from this session is first, show you these capabilities, and then give you inspiration on what type of task and processes you can automate back in your organizations. And for folks here in the audience, Heather and I will be staying at the end, so if you have questions or comments, please feel free to see us at the end. McKinsey did this interesting study a few months ago where they basically found out that 45% of the time that we spend at work can be automated. It doesn't mean that 45% of all jobs can be automated, thankfully, but 45% of the time that we spend as information workers in front of a computer can be automated using technology that is already available today. And this is it's interesting because we had automation technology for many years, but there were things where we couldn't do because we had to have some cognitive capabilities, we had to have some reasoning capabilities, and now AI agents are able to do that. I think we can all relate. We all have tasks which wish we could automate, like those boring email reports that we have to send, or those data entry tasks that we need to do. Now these are doable and can be automated using AI and agents. In a similar way, Gartner did a similar study, but they look at different role functions, at different job functions, and they look at the sales role, which is so critical in many organizations. And they saw that 14% of the time of sellers, they spend in what's called prospecting. So this is the activities around looking for new customer opportunities, new leads, entering that data into CRM, and so on. And these are things which do require some cognitive capabilities, so the ability to go over financial data, go over recent news, be able to reason over that. So these are typical tasks that wasn't possible to automate a few years ago, but now with AI agents, we can go ahead and automate it. And 14% of time is huge for a seller, so they can go now and spend more time working with customers, spending time with customers, and closing more deals. So the question for all of you is, what automation opportunities do you see in your organizations? I'm sure by now you already have some ideas. When working with customers, we usually use this framework of the 5 towers of automation, which basically covers all the functions in our organization that we can apply automation. From front office tasks, like sales management that we just discussed, to employee experience, so how do we improve the onboarding experience for our employees, to back office operations, like all those IT support use cases. If you're looking for inspiration, we have the Microsoft Work Lab, which is a great research team that we have, which basically publishes news and research on how AI is impacting the world of work. And a few months ago, we published a study where we basically did an analysis on how AI is changing job functions across Microsoft. And there's some really interesting stats. For example, we run a very large support organization for our consumer products like Xbox, but also for enterprise products. And agents, AI agents, are not only enabling answering questions from customers faster without having to escalate to our human colleagues, but our human colleagues, our human support agents, they're able to close cases 12% faster by using AI. We were talking about sellers before with that Gartner study. We've been able to measure that our sellers are able to generate 9% more revenue using AI, and they're able to close 20% more deals, which at the scale of Microsoft is a huge, huge number there. But it's not only about Microsoft. If you also want to be inspired by other customer stories, we have a great website called microsoft.com/customers. We're gonna find thousands of different customer stories. We are in San Francisco, the birthplace of some of the amazing, best tech companies in the world. One of them is Uber. Uber is using our technology, or Microsoft Stack, to automate a number of their processes, from invoice automation to categorizing tax items for like their hundreds of thousands of Uber Eats items, to processing safety reports from drivers and riders. They're all using our AI stack to automate that. And they've been sharing that, for example, they had 9 million annual saving by applying these technologies. Again, very large amounts. Or if we look at the UK, we have Virgin Money. They've been able, in 8 weeks, to build an agent that is able to answer 58% of customer engagements, which is huge. So, where to start? The place is Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is the low-code platform where you can go and build your agents. And you don't have to be a professional developer to build those agents. It's a very simple drag-and-drop interface, as we will see now in the demos. And of course, Copilot Studio is part of the Microsoft stack. We start with Microsoft 365 Copilot. This is the AI assistant that we give all employees to be more productive. We use it in the chat application in M365 Copilot. It's also available in the different Office applications. And as part of the experience, you can use agents. And all the agents that you build in Microsoft Copilot Studio, you can use it in Microsoft 365 Copilot. You also all the great announcements from Microsoft Foundry yesterday. In Foundry, you can access a large number of AI models. You can even fine-tune your own models. Everything that you do in Foundry in terms of building your own models there, you can use them as well in Copilot Studio. And AI models, they really are amazing. Like, they allow us to do things which were not possible before, like be able to reason over a long document, be able to do content understanding through images. But working with customers, we're seeing that, hey, for business processes, there's an expectation of predictability. So you probably all have the experience where you ask an AI model like a question, and you get perhaps like 3 different answers every time. So for some cases, that's OK. Definitely, the creativity part of the models is an interesting aspect. But if you want to have a consistent business process, that can be a challenge. So within Copilot Studio, you have the ability to set the level of autonomy that works for your business use case. You can start from a workflow where you're going to be very prescriptive on the steps you want your business process to follow, and the agent will follow those steps. You can go all the way to autonomous agent, where you basically just provide the instructions in natural language, a set of tools, and the agent will be able to orchestrate. And you can adjust it depending on your needs. So you can very well build an agentic workflow where you define the steps, and some of the steps are agentic, are AI steps where you're going to be able to reason and do more complex processing, which was not possible with pure rule-based automation. And these things have name in Copilot Studio. An agentic workflow or agentic workflow engine is called agent flows. And in agent flows, you're going to have a very nice designer where you're going to be able to define step by step the steps that you want your process to do. You have access to thousands of tools that you can add to build your workflow. And if you want to go all the way to autonomous agent, then you can build your autonomous agent where you just define the instructions of what you want your agent to do. You give it those tools, and then the engine will go and orchestrate those tools. So talking about tools, Copilot Studio has a very rich tool set. You have from over 1,000 connectors to different services, both Microsoft and non-Microsoft ones. You can use MCP. MCP was announced a year ago by Anthropic, and is growing a lot. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of MCP servers. You can use those MCP servers as well in Copilot Studio. We have Code Interpreter, where the agent will be able to generate code. So a really rich tool set where your agents can use to take action. So you can do things like sending emails in Teams, creating records in ServiceNow, be able to query data from CRM, be able to work with Excel. So thousands of different combinations. But what we see working with customers is that there's a lot of systems out there which don't have APIs. So these can be things like old desktop applications, custom applications that we build in the enterprise that nobody dares to update. Or it doesn't have to be legacy. It can be like a modern website. Like I need to automate the process of inputting data into a website where there's no API. The only way to automate it is through a mouse and keyboard. So for that, 2 months ago, we launched in public preview Computer Use. Computer Use is a tool in Copilot Studio where we give your agents a computer to automate tasks that require a mouse and keyboard. And Computer Use is built on top of a technology called 𝗬𝗬, Computer Using Agent, where you basically just provide a prompt in natural language, and the 𝗬𝗬 model will start using the computer by using vision. It's going to look at the computer, and it's going to decide where to click based on what it says and the instruction. So you could say, for example, hey, I want to build an agent to send me, I don't know, an email of all the sessions around Copilot Studio at Ignite. The Ignite website, as far as I know, doesn't have an API. But with computer use, you can build an agent that's going to be able to navigate the Ignite website, search for those Copilot Studio sessions, and then send an email. And it's going to be able, by using that computer, using vision, and taking those actions. And the computer use tool in Copilot Studio is a very rich tool. We provide a lot of components. From the authoring experience, so from the ability to author your computer use tool with natural language, to the ability to add human supervision. So if the computer use needs help, it's going to be able to reach out to a human. If you want to then review all the history and what the computer use tool did, we have a rich run history that we're going to see in the demo. Of course, security. So your computer use is going to have to use credentials. You're going to want to also be able to set guardrails of what it can do and cannot do. So we have the security layer. Of course, computer use needs a machine to run. So we also have a rich set of machine tools that you can choose from. And of course, the foundation is the AI model. And we're doing constant investments to make sure that computer use has the best 𝗬𝗲 model available out of the box. And for all of this, we have almost all of this, we have updates here to announce at Ignite. The first one, probably the most important, machine. Without a machine, we don't have computer use. And up until now, you have two options when it comes to where you run computer use. You can start with the hosted browser, which is a lightweight Windows machine, which is good for web automation. So it's a machine that you all get out of the box for free. You don't have to configure anything. You don't have to work with your IT. It's already available out of the box. And it can be used to automate any public website. It doesn't have access to your internal resources. But if you want to quickly get started, test computer use, and automate any public website, you can start with hosted browser. You can also bring your own machine. So any Windows machine that you own, whether it's on-premise or on the cloud, you can register it into Copilot Studio, and you can use that machine with computer use. So that machine, you have full control. You can install your own applications. You manage it. So any machine that you own, you can use it for computer use. And what we're announcing this week at Ignite is the introduction of the Cloud PC pool. So this is the ability within Copilot Studio to now create Windows 365 for Agents machine within Copilot Studio. So these machines are joined to your entire organization. They can be managed via Intune. And it's just a few clicks to instantiate those machines from Copilot Studio, and they're ready to go and to be used from Copilot Studio. And because they're intra-joined, they have access to your own organizational data and resources. And we're also giving away a number of free hours. So if you want to get started today, you can start it, and we can try it out for free. And because it's a pool, it can scale. So if you're going to send multiple requests to the computer use tool, we're going to scale the number of machines that are going to process that request. All right. Next, human supervision. So up until now, if computer use ran into any issue where it needed a human input, the agent will just stop, and you will need to go back to the agent, rewrite the instruction, and start from scratch. Now with human supervision, you have the ability to basically define a person to contact. So if the agent is running, if computer use is running, and it needs human input, it will pause the execution. It will send an email to that contact. That person will be able to provide feedback to that email, and the execution will be able to resume. So no longer you have to stop and start from scratch. The agent will just pause, wait for the human input, and then continue with the additional feedback. The purpose of computer use and agents is for it to run autonomously. So they're going to run in the background, and you want to be able to monitor and see what they did while they were running in the background. So we've improved our run history. So I will see in the demo where in activity, you're going to now see a very rich replay of what happened in the machine, as well as details of each of the steps it took. And we're also emitting audit logs that you can review in Microsoft Purview. Many of the websites and applications that you want to automate with computer use will need a credential. So up until now, you could store those credentials in Azure Key Vault, and then computer use will be able to safely use those Key Vault credentials to access those sites. Now we're introducing also a built-in credential store in Copilot Studio. So if you don't want to create a Key Vault resource and have to manage it, you can now basically use our built-in credential store in Copilot Studio for that. And last, but definitely not least, quality. So what really makes computer use run for organization is the performance or reliability of the tool. We're doing every month updates. These models are evolving very fast. So if you were, for example, one of our early customers in September, from September to now, we've improved 20% the performance and reliability of computer use. So if you tried computer use 2 months ago and it wasn't working quite right for use case, try it again. You'll probably be surprised by how these models are evolving. And we expect 2026 to be even a better year in terms of performance. But enough slides. Let's actually go and see the product to see what it's able to do. And for this demo, we're going to be looking through the eyes of Nationwide. So Nationwide is America's largest pet insurance company. And they process millions of different claims. And they use Microsoft technology to process those claims. So we're going to see how they're able to use agents and computer use to better process these claims. So let me switch to the demo machine here. So claims look like this. So this is actually a claim from Heather, from her beautiful dog also, which you're going to meet shortly in a few minutes. So Nationwide receives these claims via email. And a Nationwide representative needs to go through this claim, go into this portal here, and basically transfer the information. Well, first look for the policy of the customer. So let me type here real quick. And then transfer the information from the PDF into this form. So an example of a very tedious task that we would rather automate rather than have a human do it over and over again. So let's build an agent with computer use to automate this. And we're going to use computer use because this website doesn't have an API. So the only way to automate it is to basically use a mouse and keyboard. So here I've started to build an agent in Copilot Studio. Let's walk through the different sections of the agents in case it's the first time you see Copilot Studio. The first thing you're going to define is a trigger. So an agent in Copilot Studio, you can trigger it through chat, or you can also make it autonomous by giving a trigger. In this case, I'm telling it that, hey, I want this agent to start every time we receive a claim via email. Then I'm going to go and define the instructions in natural language. So I'm telling it, hey, every time you receive a new claim via email, I want you to use the computer to submit the claim in the claim management system. And after the claim is registered, I want you to send a confirmation email to the customer. And if any information is required, please reach back to the customer to give that information. So here we're combining the computer use tool with, in this case, the Outlook tool to be able to send emails. To add computer use to your agent is very simple. You just have to new tool. You click here, new tool, and you will see computer use here. And the only thing you need to provide is the steps in natural language. So you describe in natural language what you want to do in the computer. You also have here some samples if you want to try them out. Let me just switch to the one I've already added. So as I was telling, the only thing we need to provide here is the instructions in natural language. So basically, I'm telling it, hey, go to the claim management website, create a new claim, and then submit the claim. That's the only thing I need to do. I don't need to write any complex script or anything like that, just natural language instructions, as if I was explaining to a colleague how to perform this task. There's more settings. You can define inputs. In this case, inputs is for dynamic content that is going to come for every run. In this case, every time we're going to trigger the computer use tool, we want to process a different claim. So in this case, I've defined a claim input. Machines, this is where I define in which machine it runs. In this case, I have it running in the Cloud PC pool, but I can also change the machine. So I can go from the hosted browser, I can bring my own machine, or the now new Cloud PC pool option. And then there's more options, which I won't spend a lot of time here, but we have the ability to define human supervision. So if the agent needs human input while it's running, who to reach out to, in this case myself, who will send me an email. And then I can define credentials, if I need credentials to authenticate to websites, as well as limit in allow list which website and application the computer use tool can access. But let's go ahead and test it. Let's try it out. So let me go ahead and click on test. Because it has an input, it's asking me, hey, can you please provide a sample claim? So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go back to the claim, copy it, and then paste it here. All right, and now the moment of truth. So now, if everything goes well, we're going to see on the right what is happening live on the machine, on the cloud machine. and on the left, the reasoning from the agent. And again, this is the agent operating the computer. I'm not, as you can see, the good thing of doing this live presentation, I'm not touching the computer, and we don't have anyone backstage doing it. It's just the agent using the computer. And the way it works is basically, so computer use is looking at the instructions on the left, and then looking at the computer screen. And it says, OK, the first thing I need to do is I need to navigate to the website. So what it's going to do is going to move the mouse to address bar, type the URL of the website, and navigate to a website. And every time it does that, it takes a screenshot, analyzes the content, and decides what is the next step. Here, it has loaded the website. And as you can see, there's a pop-up. Nowhere in the instructions, I'm telling computer use what to do with the pop-up. But because it's able to read the website, and is able to read the content of the pop-up, it says, hey, it's just an information pop-up. I can safely dismiss it, and I'm going to continue with the step. So next thing it's going to do is it sees that it needs to create a new claim. So it's going to locate the new claim button, and it's going to click into it. And it's going to continue that process until it enters all the data. As you can see, in terms of speed, it's not super, super fast. The reason is because we do image processing, because every time we take an action, we take a screenshot, and we do image processing to see what's on the screen and decide what to do. So that's why it's taking a bit of time. The purpose of all this is basically to run autonomously in the background. So you're not going to be watching all the time what it's doing. You're going to build your agent, test it, and when it's good, you're going to publish your agent, and your agent is going to run throughout the day, overnight, and you don't have to see it. In any case, we are working to make this faster, and as models get better, you can expect the speed to get better. I think there's a famous quote that says that today's models are the worst they will ever be. This is the slowest computers will ever be. Good. So in the interest of time, so now what it will do is it will go and submit the rest of the form. Because we have a ton of content to go through, let me go and show you what it looks like when the full agent runs. So this is the new activity view. And if I click on the computer use node, I now can see a full session replay. So I'm going to be able now to basically see the full session replay. I'm going to be able to see where it clicked, with the different screens interacted, and so on. So we can see that it was able to correctly input the policy number and fill out the different data from the claim. And we also have a nice breakdown here. So you can see each of the steps and each of the reasoning steps, what computer use did, and in which what it clicked, how much time it took, and so on. There's a fun thing where that form required to click on the pet type, and it was just an image. It was not a text. It was able to first identify from the claim that also is a dog, and then click the right dog icon. And you also get a lot of rich information like how much action it took, how much time it took, which machine it ran, which credentials it used, and so on. So you have full traceability of what computer use did here. All right, so that's for the demo. So we're able to basically just by adding the computer use tool and some natural language instruction to automate this process. Thank you. All right, so to recap what we just saw, computer use is a tool that you can add to your agents to automate any process that doesn't have an API and requires UI automation, so the use of mouse and keyboard. The only thing you need to use to configure it is natural language. So you write a natural language prompt, and you're good to go. Then once you write your prompt, you can test it with the experience that we saw, where we saw the computer on the right and the reasoning step on the left. You can basically verify that the prompt works correctly. If it's good, you can publish your agent. If it's not good, you can tweak in the prompt until it performs well, and then you can publish your agent. Then, once the agent is published, you can go into the activity view and see the rich run history, which is now something new that we are launching here at Ignite. You can also define the websites and applications you can access. So computer use is a powerful tool, and you might want to limit where it accesses, so you can define that allow list. You can now define credentials, both on Key Vault and built-in credentials. And last but not least, you can also now define human supervision. So if computer use needs human input, it will be able to do that. Let me pass it over to agent flows now, and we're going to see how we can build automations and workflows that are enterprise ready and are predictable. Heather?
Thank you, Joe. Perfect. So now we got to see all of the really cool features in computer use agent. We'll use the rest of the time to cover automation. Now, can I get by a show of hands how many people have either built a Power Automate flow or an agent flow, cloud flow in the crowd? Okay, so quite a few of you. Now, I want you all to come with a brand new perspective to how we view automation. Now, you don't think I'm just going to follow up with regular API-based automation after Joe showed us a computer being able to type on its own. So today what we're really going to be talking about is agentic automation. So Agent Flows is available today in Microsoft Copilot Studio, and it still allows users to be able to automate and create automations that are deterministic. Now, we've been hearing a lot about agents and what it means to be dynamic versus deterministically orchestrated. So with an agent, you give it a set of tools, you give it a set of instructions, and just like Joe showed, it can go and make decisions about how it enacts those actions or those clicks or those tools, etc. But sometimes when you have a repeatable task or a repeatable flow, what you really want to set is a really strict flow of when those actions or tools can be used. For that, you want to turn to agent flows. Now, agent flows has all of the capabilities that Power Automate Cloud Flows has, access to all of those 1,500 connectors, which allows you to bring extensibility and integration across many, many services, whether that's M365 applications like Excel and SharePoint, or larger services like SAP, maybe Dynamics, even Salesforce. That all still exists inside of Agent Flows. Now, to get into a little bit about what makes Agent Flows special and the intelligence that we're bringing into Agent Flows, one of the first capabilities that we have is intelligent approvals. Now, approvals have existed for a long time, where you can go and set off approvals to different people in your organization to ensure that as a process is ongoing, you have a human in the loop to decide whether an action is approved or it needs to be rejected. Now with intelligent approvals, you can actually add an AI approval or an intelligent approval to that step, allowing an agent or an AI system to decide whether the approval meets certain standards. And we'll be able to see a little bit of this in a demo. But if you think about some of these rules that we already know and are pretty steadfast in an organization, maybe you have an invoice and you have a rule that if an invoice is under $1,000, you just want to automatically approve it. Or if there's some qualities to an invoice, you want to make sure that it gets surfaced to a specific group or maybe to a specific department in your organization. You can actually have intelligent approval categorized and then route that approval to where it best fits. Perfect. Okay. Next, we have request for information. So flows, you have the ability to create actions that go and communicate with users or other folks inside of your organization. But you've never had the ability to actually have that flow wait for a response. With request for information action, you can now add an action directly into your flow that reaches out to somebody in your organization for specific information that flow needs to continue doing its work, and then brings back that answer into the flow. And then you can use that answer as dynamic values in the rest of your flow. So say that you have an invoice or a specific business process that requires some additional information to process. You can add that action directly into the flow. And now you can execute agents directly from the flow. So you saw Joe walk us through creating an agent, and now I know all of us are becoming experts in creating agents and prompts after Ignite. But how do you then what is the ability to deterministically orchestrate the calls to these different agents? And that you can leverage agent flows for. Not only to go and execute an agent, but actually execute an agent and wait for it to come back with a response, which allows you to either link different agents inside of the flow or bring in an agent into a more deterministic vanilla flow that you've known before. And then Prompt Builder. So we've had Prompt Builder for a couple years now, which allows you to build prompts that make direct calls to an LLM. And these are really great building blocks to bring intelligence into your flow. Whether you want it to do some type of content intelligence, data extraction, it has never been as easy or as intelligent as using Prompt Builder. But that's not it. Because within Prompt Builder, you can now bring your own model. You can choose different models available to you across Copilot Studio. So those are both OpenAI models as well as Anthropic models from the big news that we heard this week. But you can also connect to any custom models that you've built directly into Azure AI Foundry, bringing that intelligence or that fine-tuned model directly into Copilot Studio. So what can you do with a prompt? So I think previously, we've really thought about document understanding or extracting text from a document, but now you can do so much more. You can generate code, you can actually process a document and create that document, you can reshape data and do intelligent content classification. Document generation. Now with a prompt, you can actually generate a document directly from in the prompt. You can give it a set of fields that you want it to either create or take previously gathered from that flow, and then have it create that document. And then you can use that document downstream in your flow. So maybe now you can actually have a flow create an invoice with all of the guidelines of which your invoice records are set inside of your organization, and then have it send that invoice to the appropriate person. That means you can do all of this inside one flow. It's not about extracting information, sending it to somebody, getting information back, creating that document, and then sending it on over. Now with request for information, document extraction, and document generation, you can do that in a single flow. And doesn't end there. We have code generation. So inside prompts, you can actually generate code, which generates charts, documents, and so much more. You can write back to Dataverse tables. You can create custom code snippets that allow for a more sustainable and expected results inside of your prompt execution. I mean, that's a pretty cool chart that you can just create with a sentence. Okay, so I think we've seen enough slides. Let's check all of this out in a demo. Let's see if... Okay, for a second there, I thought my machine had restarted and I was gonna cry on stage. Okay, perfect. So for those of you who, and I saw a lot of hands previously, who have used Power Automate or flows in the past, this is gonna look really familiar, except a couple of changes that we have brought into agent flows over the last couple of weeks. The first is that we've brought add action and the action card directly in line. So we've got a lot of feedback about the panels inside of Power Automate. We've heard you loud and clear. We're now bringing those actions directly into line. So that means you can add an action inside of this new add action panel, which has these new really helpful categorizations, making it easier to add an action to your flow. And you can open up multiple action cards at once, which gives you full visibility of that flow as you configure a new action. So it's never been easier or faster to add actions. And with saved drafts, you can actually save a draft of your flow regardless of incomplete actions or errors. And I can come into version history to actually see different versions of that flow. I can jump back to different versions. Maybe someone messed with my flow and I want to go back to a previous version before it broke. I can step into it super easy in this version history panel. Okay, so this is Nationwide's brand new claim processing workflow. As Joe mentioned previously, Nationwide is the largest pet insurance provider, and they get a ton of claims every single day. They handle over 47 million claims a year. So they're really turning to automation to do intelligent extraction. So at the heart of this flow, I have a prompt that I've given 3 tasks to. The first task is to actually extract information from a claim document that looks a little bit like this. So that claim document that Joe shared before, and this is a claim that I put in for my dog also. And then we've actually asking it to extract some information from an animal picture, like this photo of poor little 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. Don't worry, he's totally fine now. I needed an excuse to show you my dog. He's really cute, right? Okay. And then the third and final job, to take all of that information from the picture and from that claim document and actually use the information on the handler inside of Dataverse to decide whether the claim meets the data policy and whether the injury is covered. Now, we've been able to do data extraction for a really long time, but previously this would have taken multiple models, OCR, weeks of training, and a mountain of data. Here, I've written 3 sentences, and we can see that it's identified a couple of important facts. First, it's identified that Oso is a Schnauzer, which means that his policy correlates with the data that's coming from the claim, and that the injury is covered by his policy. This is a really key, important information to detect potential fraud in these insurance claims. Okay, perfect. So I gave another excuse to bring Oso on the big screen, but we have this prompt which has extracted that data. I can ensure that that data gets outputted in a JSON format, which allows me to use it easily and cleanly in the downstream of my flow. I don't have to then go and parse that JSON, compose different fields. For those who have spent maybe too many hours inside of flows, you know the pain of that feeling. With this JSON, it's more easy to use inside of your flow. And like I said previously, you now have the option to choose multiple models directly inside of this prompt. Okay. So now that we have this prompt and we can add that data in downstream in my flow, like here I can see I've added all of that into a claim request in Dataverse, we want to get this claim approved fairly and efficiently. For that, we'll turn to intelligent approvals. Now, this intelligent approval, I have given, again, it's been able to approve this claim across different stages. So the first stage is an AI filter, where I've given it 4 different instructions. I want to make sure that it can detect any potential fraud. As you can imagine, insurance claims are really prone to fraud, and here we're saving many, many human hours of going through this claim to detect potential fraud, all through this AI filter. And once the AI is able to approve or reject this claim based on fraud, it can then route it to the claims manager or the fraud department as appropriate. And then finally, send it to the claims payable department as a final approval. And it does all of this intelligently. So imagine the hours and efficiencies that Nationwide has gained by intelligently extracting, categorizing, and then approving these claims. But the approval is not the last step in a claims handling process. There are many, many other steps that occur. For those where you need a little more intelligence and maybe a little bit more of a dynamic touch, you can turn to an agent directly inside of your flow. So now this flow has done all of the hard work of extracting that data, finding the Dataverse content and information, and it now wants to send all of that information over to an agent to be able to actually do some final intake items. For that, we'll use an execute agent and wait action. Here, I can name the agent that I want to execute and then pass over any information to that agent that I think it needs to do its job. And once that agent comes back with a response, I can actually use it downstream in my flow by updating that row in that Dataverse table that we just saw to actually record the status of the claim back from that agent. Now, imagine the intelligence and the efficiencies that Nationwide has gained. But this is just one example of how AI meets automation to create smarter processes, faster decisions, and ultimately save countless hours and dollars. I'm very excited to see how you all will bring AI into your automations. Perfect. Great, I think. Thank you. Thank you. So how do you get started? I bet after seeing Joe's 𝗬𝗲 demo and that agent flows demo, you guys just are so excited to go back to your hotel rooms, get on a computer, and try all of this stuff for yourself. So here are some super helpful links to help you get started on both 𝗬𝗲 on the right side and agent flows on the left side. And I'll make sure I'm seeing phones coming down from taking photos. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any feedback, please let us know. And have a great rest of your evening.